A single pipeline restart has just shifted billions in European financing and reopened a critical energy corridor tied directly to the war in Ukraine. After months of stoppage, Russian oil is once again flowing through the Ukrainian section of the Druzhba pipeline, a system capable of carrying up to 1.4 million barrels per day. The immediate consequence is not only economic but political. A long-delayed $90 billion European Union loan to Ukraine is now moving forward. What remains unresolved is whether this represents a step toward stabilization or a temporary alignment of competing interests under pressure. To understand why this pipeline matters, it is necessary to see how energy infrastructure, war, and European politics have become tightly interconnected since the escalation of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Druzhba pipeline, built during the Soviet era, connects Russian oil fields to refineries across Central and Eastern Europe, including in Hungary and Slovakia. For decades, it operated as a stable supply route. Since 2022, however, it has shifted into a strategic pressure point shaped by sanctions, military activity, and political disputes. The most recent disruption occurred after a drone strike damaged infrastructure in western Ukraine, halting flows through part of the system. That stoppage immediately affected countries still reliant on Russian crude, particularly Hungary and Slovakia, whose refinery configurations limit their ability to rapidly switch suppliers. This dependence translated into political leverage inside the European Union, where energy security has become directly tied to decision-making on financial assistance for Ukraine. That leverage became visible in negotiations over a $90 billion EU loan package, designed to support Ukraine's liquidity through 2026 and 2027. The funding was intended to maintain government operations and economic stability during wartime conditions. However, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and the Slovak government blocked approval, arguing that Ukraine had not ensured the restoration of pipeline flows quickly enough. Kaja rejected that claim, but the result was a prolonged delay in financial assistance. The situation shifted when oil deliveries resumed. Hungarian energy company MOL confirmed that Ukraine had informed it of the restart, with shipments expected to reach Hungary and Slovakia within a short time frame. This operational change triggered immediate political movement in Brussels, where EU ambassadors advanced the loan process toward formal approval. The sequence demonstrates how infrastructure status directly affects high-level fiscal decisions inside the EU system. Domestic political developments in Hungary also influenced timing. Viktor Orbán's party suffered an electoral setback on April 12th, altering expectations about Hungary's future position on EU-level decisions. The incoming political leadership under Péter has signaled a reduced likelihood of blocking future EU funding for Ukraine, although the transition of power is still underway. This shift contributed to reduced uncertainty around the loan approval process. From a technical perspective, the Druzhba pipeline has a capacity range of approximately 1.2 to 1.4 million barrels per day, with potential peaks closer to 2 million under optimal conditions. In practice, flows have been significantly below capacity due to sanctions, diversification efforts, and repeated disruptions linked to the conflict. Even partial restoration of supply, however, is sufficient to stabilize specific refineries and reduce short-term energy risk in dependent states. At the same time, other developments highlight ongoing fragmentation in the broader energy network. Germany has confirmed that its PCK Schwedt refinery will no longer receive Kazakh crude via Druzhba beginning in May. This follows reports that Russian transit arrangements affecting Kazakh oil flows are being altered. Schwedt remains one of Germany's largest refineries, and these adjustments reflect a broader European effort to reduce exposure to infrastructure routes connected to Russian supply systems, even indirectly. Two scenarios now shape the near-term outlook. In the first scenario, pipeline flows remain stable and predictable. This would allow Hungary and Slovakia to maintain consistent supply while the European Union proceeds with financial support for Ukraine. Under this outcome, a fragile balance emerges. Energy transit continues despite ongoing conflict, while financial mechanisms sustain Ukraine's wartime economy. The system would remain functional, but highly sensitive to any disruption. In the second scenario, disruptions resume due to renewed attacks, technical failures, or political decisions affecting transit. In that case, Hungary and Slovakia could reintroduce objections within EU decision-making structures, potentially delaying or complicating future funding packages. This would reintroduce uncertainty into both energy markets and European fiscal coordination, increasing pressure on already strained institutional consensus. The broader geopolitical implications extend beyond the pipeline itself. This situation illustrates how energy infrastructure operates simultaneously as an economic system and a strategic instrument. Russia remains a key supplier in legacy networks. Ukraine functions as a critical transit state, and the European Union depends on coordinated political agreement among its member states. Each actor controls only part of the system, meaning disruptions in one segment rapidly affect others. For Ukraine, maintaining transit operations is also a political signal. It demonstrates functional control over infrastructure even during conflict, reinforcing its argument for continued financial and political support from European institutions. For Hungary and Slovakia, reliance on Russian-linked energy routes continues to shape their policy positions within EU negotiations. For the European Union as a whole, the challenge remains balancing internal differences with external strategic commitments under conditions of persistent instability. What makes this moment significant is the convergence of multiple timelines. A pipeline restart, a delayed financial package, and political change in Hungary all occurred within a narrow window. This alignment allowed a stalled decision to move forward, but it did not resolve the structural conditions underlying the system. Energy dependence, political differences, and the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine remain embedded in the framework. Looking ahead, the key indicators will be operational continuity and political alignment. If pipeline flows remain stable, they may support a period of relative predictability in both energy supply and EU financial coordination. If disruptions return, the same pressure points that delayed the loan could re-emerge quickly, affecting both markets and policy decisions. Ultimately, this is not only a question of oil moving through infrastructure. It is a case study in how energy systems, political decision-making, and armed conflict interact across a continental scale. The restart of the Druzhba pipeline has temporarily synchronized these forces, but whether that synchronization holds will determine the next phase of Europe's energy and geopolitical landscape.